Well, good evening, Northern Michigan. Thank you for joining us for Unscripted. And we're going to start out today. Cody Bear filling in for Maya Engel, and Trevor Robideau is here as well. So we're going to start by talking to Trevor a little bit about, it's been really hot today, but maybe more rains and storms tonight.
Yes, we are going to get a round of rain and storms tonight. Potentially some severe storms, too. That's definitely not off the table. And along with that, we'll have some cooler temperatures. That's all part of a cold front that's going to come through the region. So if you've been waiting for some much-needed cold temperatures, and I'm in the same boat with you, I'm still sweating as we speak. This is too much for me. I am not built for this kind of weather. It's the reason I moved up here. I'm from Texas and moved up to Northern Michigan to get away from this. So I'm not happy about how warm it is. So if you're like me and you've been waiting for some cooler temperatures, well, we'll talk about that. That's going to be on the way tomorrow. But we'll have active weather returning. Lots of chances for some rain for the next several days. We'll have more on that when we come back.
Awesome. Thank you, Trevor. As he mentioned, we will go back to him later on in the show. But first, our top story tonight. Iran says it has attacked American forces in Qatar in retaliation to U.S. airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. U.S. officials confirmed the attack occurred and say there were no casualties. Iran's government says its attack on Qatar used the same number of bombs used by the U.S. on its nuclear sites. Meanwhile, authorities also say missiles were launched at a base housing U.S. troops in Iraq. Now, that leads us to our question of the day. The question of the day today is, are you worried about retaliation attacks in the United States? And currently, the voting is 57% of people saying yes, 43% of people saying no. There is still time to vote on our Facebook page or on our website, UpNorthLive.com. A little closer to home now, a community building is destroyed and an investigation is underway tonight after an explosion and fire in Chippewa County. Fire crews were called to the Kinross 4-H Center at the Kinross Township Community Park. That was Sunday evening. The 4-H community is now remembering what the building meant to generations of families. Up North Live's Mary Jane Glenn was able to talk to some of those community members on the loss of this gathering place.
It's generational. We have several families in 4-H that are 4 generations, and each one of those generations has been a part of 4-H and has been a part of 4-H in our 4-H building.
A member from one of those 4 generational families went to the grounds Monday, just a day after finding out what happened.
My mom is now 86, and she saw it on the news last night, and she started to cry. She said, I've got a whole drawer full of ribbons that I won from displaying my things in that building.
Maggie Murchberger, a 4-H program coordinator for the Chippewa County, says the loss of this building is going to greatly affect the community.
It's like losing a member of the family because we are everybody grew up around it. This was a staple. This was what the kids looked forward to every year. It's sad. Our community lost a legacy.
This is exactly why Kathy Sherlunt showed up.
It seemed like it was almost like going to a funeral. And I just wanted to kind of see it and come to terms with it.
The 4-H Center is home to many: the Chippewa County Fair, Miss Chippewa County Pageant, market livestock animals, camps, horse shows, baking, painting, and photography projects.
This was home to 4-H. Everybody knew that, hey, when you said, we're going to meet at the 4-H building, everybody knew what that building was. It was a big green building with the 4-H on the front, right? And we've lost our home. And it's heartbreaking.
Now it's time to rebuild, and that's a strong suit for 4-H.
But you know what? We'll persevere. We'll get through this like everything else, and we'll figure stuff out. That's what 4-H is all about. We're about head, health, hands, and heart. If we need to get our hands in there and get things done, we'll do that. If we need to think things out, that's what we're going to do. But we will get through this.
In Kinross, Mary Jane Glenn, Up North Live News.
Shifting gears a little bit here to something developing today. Michigan State University researchers and MSU Extension educators are studying the integration of solar energy systems with agricultural operations. So to kind of explain what that means and really break it down a little bit, we're going to invite George Smith, the director of MSU Ag Bio Research, to the show. Thank you for joining us. Can you First, kind of tell us, on surface level about this technology and really what it is.
Yeah, Cody, we're very happy to be here with you tonight and have the opportunity to talk about this new, timely, important area of research which Michigan State University scientists are going to be pursuing, the topic of what's called agrovoltaics. The state of Michigan has goals for increasing their renewable energy production. So do many energy companies. So one avenue that's very much on the radar is solar energy as a source of renewable energy. But that is not without controversy because as contracts are pursued for installation of solar energy sites, conversations come up with farmers about using productive farmland for producing renewable energy. So the goal of this research is to explore the feasibility of being able to do both. Both use that farmland for harvesting solar energy and grow agricultural commodities, food crops, other crops underneath those solar arrays. A very important question, which we've heard from people on both sides of this issue. And really, there's a lack of research in Michigan to show what commodities can be produced here under solar arrays. What are the necessary procedures to do that? And most importantly, can it be profitable for farmers?
And as you mentioned, this research going on, can you tell us yet exactly what the research is going to look like at Michigan State?
Yeah, we're really at the phase now where we're just kicking off this research. There was a project recently supported and funded by the Michigan Tree Fruit Commission to install a high-density apple orchard underneath the solar array at our West Central Research Station in Hart, Michigan. That project is underway. The arrays are being constructed. The orchards will be planted, and we will be collecting data into the future. Now, that takes time. Our goal is not to just start and stop looking at tree fruit, although there is tremendous application for this potential technology with tree fruit, but to be able to expand our research footprint to look at other commodities that can be produced under arrays, whether it be small fruit, whether it be other specialty crops, or even more typical agronomic crops. So that's a goal for us in the future. We're very fortunate to have 15 outlying research stations throughout the state that represent the diversity of Michigan agriculture. We produce over 300 commodities in Michigan, second only to California, but we have a reliable source of water. So our goal is to sort of do proof of concept studies, seeing can you productively grow crops under solar arrays, what crops work best in different areas, different growing conditions, what are the concerns for producers, and ultimately driven by the economics of whether it would actually be profitable for farmers or not.
Sure. And a little earlier, you mentioned, time. Is there a set kind of start and finish date of this research, or is it just as long as it takes to kind of get what we want data-wise?
I think it's going to be something that expands in the future with what we would call annual crops, like if we were looking at vegetables or blueberries, the time to establishment of the commodity and being able to do the research is shorter than it would be with tree fruit. But it's a very important question for all of our commodities. So we're really just getting started. And with additional investments, additional partnerships on the solar array side at our research stations and in partnership with our commodity groups, we want to be able to scale up to do even more research, both in crops and also in livestock. Issues like, can you graze cattle productively under solar arrays? How do the solar arrays affect forage production and things like that? So we are really just getting started, but there's tremendous application, and we're looking for additional partners to help get this important area of research going. Again, because it's an important question for our farmers, so they can make informed decisions of whether or not they want to go in this direction in the future.
And you mentioned additional partners potentially. What would that look like? Who would they be?
Oh, we're very fortunate in the state of Michigan to have some strong support from our commodity groups for research. We have several internal funding programs that do that type of work. Project Green, Michigan Alliance for Animal Agriculture. And I'd say we're also looking for partners to help with the infrastructure investment in terms of actually establishing the solar arrays. So those could be private sector partners that really are interested in renewable energy and solar energy and see the value of this research to their bottom line as well, in terms of perhaps increasing adoption without compromising or taking productive agricultural land out of production, raising food.
Yeah, and you said, the value of this research, and that's something I really want to hit on. What's the opportunity here of using solar energy to help with, agricultural options like this?
I think there's many examples to focus on. I think probably the best and most timely example is the project that's going to go on at the West Central Research Station. The concept of agrivoltaics is not new. In Europe, for example, there's many examples of tree fruit grown under solar arrays, but our growing conditions are different. So it takes research here on the ground in Michigan to figure out, does this work? What are the differences in management that are necessary in terms of managing orchards? What are the yields, et cetera? And ultimately for farmers, growers to adopt and want to go in this direction, it's best if they can see it for themselves, orchards underneath solar arrays. So I think there's certainly application to all tree fruit, application to other commodities as well. But again, our goal is to do the research, to collect the actual data, to inform those decisions about what's required and show that it can be done effectively and safely.
Yeah, and just kind of hitting on this, quick point again of just how after the research, obviously we'll have to see whether things lean towards more beneficial or controversy, but how could this be potentially beneficial to our community of farmers?
Yeah, I think there's tremendous application. It's going to depend on what type of crops you grow. There is research in different parts of the country about arrays that are very, very high off the ground, or that the panels actually pivot. So you could even grow things like corn. Now, whether or not that would be applicable in Michigan, again, tall crops, I'm not sure. But if we look at the challenges our agriculture community is facing, and particularly our specialty crops, really our research mission is all about doing research to provide dynamic solutions for agriculture and food systems and the environment. And one part of those solutions is other sources of revenue for farmers beyond the traditional commodity that they produce. So exploring this research in combining solar energy and, for example, specialty crop production may provide another source of revenue for our tree fruit producers, certainly in the Traverse City area and other parts of the state, beyond what they achieve just through, raising apples or cherries or et cetera.
Absolutely. George Smith, thank you so much for joining us, the director of MSU Ag Bio Research. I appreciate you joining us and taking some of the time to talk about this today.
Thank you, Cody.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great one. All right, we are going to go ahead and wrap up this first bit. We're going to go into our first commercial break, but after, like I promised, Trevor Robideau will be here to tell you kind of what to expect, whether it's heat or storms coming up. Stay with us.
I'm Jada Johnson from Big Boys TV, and the Fish and Game Report is sponsored by Johnson's Propane.
Welcome back to Unscripted. Chances are I don't have to tell you that it's hot today or this weekend, but you might be wondering as the work week continues on, will it stay as hot as it has been? So Trevor, will it?
No, it will not. As a matter of fact, the cooler temperatures are on the way right now as we speak. They're not actively happening. They'll take some time to get here, but it will happen overnight leading into tomorrow. And 24 hours from now, it will be significantly colder than it was today. We're looking at 70s and at the very worst, low 80s. And that is a far and away better thing than what we had today. Right now, temperatures still warm in the upper 80s, low 90s, heat indexes upper 90s for some, even still low hundreds. A very, very warm day. Downslope warming across the mountains on the hills on the east side has led to Alpena and Oscoda being significantly warmer than everybody else. Even that will change here pretty soon. The next few hours, we'll start to slowly see progression towards colder temperatures. So we'll take a look at that first. Feels like temperatures right now for the next couple hours still in the 80s, 90s, but very quickly it'll begin to shift overnight towards tomorrow morning, where tomorrow morning we'll wake up and it'll feel like 60s again and even some 50s. And by this time tomorrow, once we get towards the evening, high 60s, mid 70s, few low 80s, even some, as I mentioned, even some high 60s possible. So it'll feel much, much better tomorrow. It will not be oppressively hot or humid. Still a little muggy, but not anywhere close to what we've had the past couple of days. Now, we've also got storms moving through the region that do have some severe potential, and I'll get into that, starting with a look at the eastern upper where we do have those storms right now. The northern lower is still completely sunny and dry. You wouldn't even know if there's storms around the region if you didn't see radar. A few storms passing through northern Luce County, northern Chippewa County. Whitefish Point got stormed not too long ago. Now I've got an isolated cell moving through Mackinac and southern Chippewa County right now. This is all part of a broken line. So as I mentioned, we got some cold temperatures and some storms. That's all part of this approaching cold front that's going across Wisconsin and the Greater Plains as we speak. That'll move from northwest to southeast tonight. And as it does, it'll give us those on and off storm chances tonight. The biggest risk that we're concerned of is later tonight. We're looking at specifically only tonight for the severe potential. A few hours from now, getting closer toward 10, 11 o'clock, and even midnight is some of those broken storms and showers moving across the region. I think a broken line, we're not going to see an organized line with this, I think. We don't have enough organized convection with this system. But a few isolated showers and storms will be moving through the region along this cold front. And again, there is severe potential with that. Now, tomorrow, things will break apart as the system kind of falls apart overnight. And then the cold front will park itself right over southern Michigan, and we'll be on the northern end of that with lots of cloud cover, in and out storm and shower chances. No severe weather tomorrow, but some isolated to even scattered showers and storms will be possible all throughout the day, and then quiet on Wednesday. Severe storm outlook. This is just for tonight. We do have the slight and marginal risk throughout northern Michigan. Most of northern Michigan is in the slight risk. That's the yellow shade. And the main risk that we're associating with this is really just some wind damage potentially. We have seen some hail already, but nothing significant or damaging. We're just looking at the potential for some damaging wind and maybe some localized flooding. Otherwise, not much. Tonight, 58 to 69. Still fairly warm tonight. Things will very slowly start to cool. Scattered showers and storms from northwest moving to the southeast. And then our southern counties, not as much overnight. And then tomorrow, a mixed bag. We'll start with some fog. And then overall, cooler seasonal temperatures, a few isolated showers and storms, and a lot more cloudy tomorrow than it was today. Then for the remainder of the forecast, cooler temperatures, more average into the 70s and 80s, and active weather for the remainder of the week until at least the weekend.
Thank you, Trevor. And some of that heat that we did have didn't stop some of our favorite baseball teams from taking the diamond. We'll check in with Harrison Beebe about those teams after the break. Stay with us. Well, with the NBA Finals wrapping up last night, a lot of your attention may be going to baseball. So let's talk a little bit about the Tigers and Pittsburghers. Harrison, how have they been playing lately?
Yeah, Cody, we're entering the 2-month stretch where it is pure baseball with the NBA and NHL wrapping up. We know we got 2+ months till football gets going. So if you like baseball, you're going to be pretty happy with the results of your teams if you haven't been keeping close track. The Tigers hold an 8.5 game lead in the American League Central here in the final week of June. We're getting near the midpoint of the MLB season, and the Tigers still hold the best record in baseball by a game and a commanding lead in the AL Central. Now, a year ago, Cody, on this show, Maya and I were talking about what the team would do with Tarek Skubal at the trade deadline, whether they'd send him somewhere or keep him for the future. And then, of course, after that, they had that great run to the playoffs. Hopefully this time around, we see some interesting pieces come into Detroit come July, and this team really ramps up what could be a great playoff run here in 2025. But yeah, the Tigers A-OK there. And then you shift things over to the Northwoods League, where the Pittsburghers, after a slow start on their end, are actually looking pretty good. They're record-wise, they have the most wins in the Great Lakes East Division at 15-12. They're virtually tied with the Kalamazoo Growlers in the standings, but the Pittsburghers are playing competitive ball as well, which should keep them in the mix here going into their whole, big stretch of the season now entering July, and then their postseason will begin in mid-August. So Traverse City definitely have something to play for. And the cool thing, Cody, with the Northwoods League, they actually have first half division champions, which automatically clinch you a playoff spot. And I don't know the exact date of when that first half wraps up, but I think it's in a few weeks here around mid-July, early mid-July. When that happens, the team in first place in the division automatically gets in the postseason. So that is no doubt something that the Pittsburghers are playing for.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned I got to ask, just because you mentioned it, maybe the Tigers make some moves at the deadline to make the team better. Any players that you want to see come over to Detroit?
Yeah, can we get Shohei Ohtani? Is that possible?
Yeah,
can we
that'd be
line
great.
him up? Or, I've heard rumblings that I'm sure it's all kidding, but bring Alex Bregman from the Red Sox and send him over, because there was talk in the offseason that the Tigers would sign him, and then he ended up going to Boston, and Boston not doing super hot. And in fact, it sounds like they're letting go of some of their guys as well. But no, nobody in particular. I really like the way this Tiger team looks. Pitching still seems kind of hit and miss sometimes, but we'll see what happens down the stretch. Exciting times for Tiger baseball.
Yeah, for sure. It's always good to be on that end of the conversation. How can you get better for the playoffs coming up not too long from now? Thank you, Harrison, for joining us. We're going to take one last break, and then we'll take another look at our question of the day. Don't go anywhere.
Salon services are furnished by Epiphany Advanced Academy in East Acme.
Welcome back to Unscripted. We're taking one final look at our question of the day. It's after Iran says it has attacked American forces in Qatar in retaliation to U.S. airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. The question is, are you worried about retaliation attacks in the United States? As of right now, 59% of people said yes, 41% of people said no. Thank you so much if you voted, and thank you for joining us for our 6:30 half hour of Unscripted. Have a great night.